Hello and welcome to the next video, topic 2b, where we are going to use a spreadsheet to make our hand calculations a little bit more bearable and less tedious. We are going to practice from the Statistics for Psychology book, number 11, where we are going to find all the important things: the mean, the median, the sum of the square deviations, the variance, the standard deviation. So I made things a little bit easier, just a touch, and put the scores in the spreadsheet for us. If you want to catch up and follow along, pause here to just put these numbers in, just so that I don't flip back and forth between the book. You don't have to see that, right? But we haven't really done anything else. All right, so let's maybe make this bold so we can see this heading like so. So we just want to find all the things. Now we want to maybe make some space here, right? I'm going to make one column. I'm going to just insert a column to move things a little bit to the side. I'm going to put my answers over here. I'm going to calculate mean. I'm going to calculate the median. I'm going to sum of squares, variance, standard deviation. Okay, that is a little longer than this column originally is. I'll just double click to make it wider and fit. This is where my answers will be. Now, the goal here isn't, I'm just going to put a little pretty box around it, the curly, bold these guys. You can really spend a lot of time on making it look pretty. Okay, I'll stop here. The goal here is to have a balance between Excel functions and still doing things by hand and still understanding what I'm doing. There are always faster methods, but I don't want to drift too far towards the statistics software side, right? We have SPSS, we have uh, another video after this to explore that. So find that balance. The spreadsheet here, for me, my purposes in this course, is simply to raise awareness how a spreadsheet can be used as a more efficient calculator. So to, I don't want Excel to do everything for me. There are data analysis packages and options and all kinds of things it can do. Want to contain that because maybe you use Google Sheets or OpenOffice or something else, and those things might not be there, right? Okay, so the mean I can do in two ways. One way is, maybe I should have given myself a little down a touch, spaces here, and I want to just note n, the number of scores. Now, two options. I can count them. Actually, I have three options. I can count them visually. I can temporarily put a little counter in here. 1, 2, 3, like we did last time. Space here. And then I can let Excel continue that counting, and there are 21. Perhaps in the question they confirm there are 21. They do not. So I don't have that checked, but this is a good way to just quickly count it. Just I don't care for this column other than to count how many scores there are. Okay, get rid of that column. I know 21. Another way to do it is to use a built-in function, which is not a fancy function, the count function. Now, when I click on the insert function, my most recently used functions do come up. Count is one of them, otherwise I can just search for it. I want to select all the scores and it'll count how many numbers there are, confirming the 21. Okay, so lots of options here. Not going too crazy with functions and having things done for me too much, but they're there for quality of life. So maybe next I want to calculate the sum of the scores, not the squares, as a temporary one. Now, the beauty of this is that there are functions to do this for me. Sum function is one that I've used. I want to select all the scores, add them up, and I get 4. I then calculate the mean as, I'm going to do my own calculation, the sum of all the scores divided by how many there are. 2. I'll just do it on the side here. There is a built-in function that is the average function that does the exact same thing, the arithmetic mean. But do note there are other kinds of averages, geometric average and things like that. So if you don't know exactly what a function does, it might not give you exactly what our formula is. So I select all my scores. In this case, it is the same. But I did it a little bit more manually so that I can solidify that understanding. This is just a glorified calculator. I have the mean of 2. Now the median is sort of where I'm sort of stuck in the middle here. If I did it by hand, it's a little bit more tedious, but the spreadsheet still can help me a lot. I want to sort the scores. I want to arrange them in increasing order. I can totally do that. I select the scores. I click on the data tab at the top. There is a sort option. Now I don't use the shortcuts. I click on sort to say exactly what I want. My data does not have headers, so I need to uncheck that box. Why is my mouse so small? Better mouse. Oh, I see. I see. Let me just cancel this. Oh, I need the little cross and stuff. Yeah. It's for the most part the big one, but I do need to see the mouse change sometimes. So I apologize if you can't really see this, but I'll move it around so you can track it. Let's go back. I thought I could make a different cursor, but in the spreadsheet software, the cursor changes to give me options of what to do, so I don't want to mess with that. Anyway, I'll go back to my sort uh, option here under the data tab. I don't have any headers, so make sure you uncheck that. My mouse is better there, yeah. It wants to do the column. It's in column E. I want to arrange smallest to largest, and there it shuffles them around. I still have the same. They're just sorted now. Maybe I don't want to mess up my scores. Maybe I just want to make another column. I can very easily select that, copy, and paste them. And then maybe I can not mess up my originals, but the sorted ones I can edit because the sorting option me. The sorting option is going to alter them a little bit. Like column F, sort them. Okay. Now, what are you doing to me here? Just that one. Just that one. I don't want to sort a lot of stuff. Okay, what is this? Microsoft Excel found data next to your selection. Since you have not selected this data, it'll not be sorted. Yes, I understand that. Thank you. It happens sometimes. It tries to think for me, right? But reading clarifies it. So everything's the same, but column F only. That's what I want. Good. So I see I still have to think a little bit. That's okay. I just didn't want to mess up my original scores. Shuffle them around even. Anyway, Now I can have a little counter here, perhaps. I love the counter. It's just so handy. So that I don't have to go and systematically count these. I have 21 of them. The middle one is obviously number 11, and therefore my median is 2. Easy peasy. See? Once you know how to sort and not have other columns mess it up, right there, it's not hard to do at all. I just use the counter temporarily. I don't need it anymore. Now perhaps Excel has a median function that I can use to verify that my median is the same. Well, one pops up, returns the median or the number in the middle of the set of given numbers. All right, let's do it. Let's see what it gets. I'll use the original scores to show that I don't even have to sort them. That function is going to sort them for me. I get a 2, wherever my selection was. But I did it a little bit more manually, so I feel that I understand the median. But you have options. I don't want to go too crazy with the functions because this is just a glorified calculator for me. You'll have to understand what I'm doing, but often you do have functions doing these little things. Okay. My sorted column is done. Don't need that anymore. I now want to move on to some of the square deviations, variance, standard deviation. All right. So let's go can't spell, deviations, where I'm going to calculate the score right next to it minus the mean, which I have right there. And I want to copy this formula down. That's not quite right, is it? First one is great. Next one, it shouldn't be subtracting anything other than the mean. So I need to go back, and this happens often, I forget. And I need to make sure that this pink cell referencing the mean is fixed by putting your cursor inside and pressing F4. Now when I copy it down, it's going to always take the median and subtract it from the appropriate score. And I sometimes, if the score is lower than the mean, sorry, did I say median? It's always going to take the mean and subtract it from the score, from the appropriate, not the median. No, that's not a thing. When the score is lower than the mean, get a negative value. When it's above the mean, I'll get a positive value. Now, it helps perhaps if the mean and median would be different, but in this case, they are exactly the same. It does happen. So there's my deviations. Now I'm going to square them, square deviations. And I simply take this guy, the deviation score, to the power of 2. Not fixed it because I want each deviation to be used. Sometimes it's good. Double click on something further down that you copied. Is it doing what it should do? Yeah, it seems okay. Now I need to add all of these deviations, and that'll be the sum of the squares. But I have a sum function for that, which is the most basic function. Don't have to do that by hand. That's the whole point of doing a spreadsheet. Select them. I get 56. That 56 doesn't mean much. Doesn't mean much. It's a stepping stone on the way to the variance. And remember, if I bring up the formula sheet for us, at this stage, the formula that I'm going to use for the variance of a set of scores and nothing else is formula 2.2, which divides by the number of scores. If you know a little more, and later on, we're going to divide by something else. We're going to divide by n minus 1 if you peek ahead, because what we're calculating is slightly different, has a different purpose. Right now, conceptually, we're dividing by n. So let's do that. I'm going to calculate my variance as the sum of the squares number divided by how many there are. See how I don't put in the actual numbers. I reference the cells from previous calculations. And I get 2.6 repeating. I can decide here to format the cell. I right click on it, go down to Format Cells, and you see here I have some options. I want to go to the first one, the Number tab at the top, and I can tell it, look, this is a number. I can choose how many decimal places I want to round it to. Let's say 2. Then it'll automatically do that for me. But this is much better than a calculator, a hand calculator, because this is just being presented for me. Behind the scenes, it still has the exact number. So I reference this cell in a future calculation and it'll be the exact number, even though it's presented as a rounded number. So it is just perfect. It's exactly what I'm looking for. So I don't have to worry if I'm using formulas and calculations. I don't have to worry about manually rounding an answer and risking a future calculation being wrong if I use that rounded version. It's perfect. Then my standard deviation is simply the square root of that guy. Now I don't know. Go back and look for the square root function. Square root. I'll search. Second one, where's this first one? Returns the square root of a complex number. No, that's not what we're doing. Just sqrt returns the square root of a number. And my number is the variance number. See, I don't put in 2.67. That would be wrong. I reference the cell that has the answer from a previous calculation, which means Excel will take the exact number regardless of its presentation. I didn't specify how to round this one, so it's giving me a good number of digits that can fit in to the width. If I make it wider, it might show me more, but there aren't any more than that. So I can choose, okay, let's go 2 decimal places here by formatting that cell. Number format, round to 2 decimal places. There we go. So it's very, very handy in the sense that it always has the exact values behind the scenes, but I don't always have to see them. I can see nice, presentable, rounded values. Okay. Just want to note at the end here, let's do a check and see what Excel does if I use its built-in variance function, which may or may not be here. I didn't actually check until right now. Variance, there we go. What's this? No, variance. This function is available for compatibility with Excel. Ooh, it's an older one. What should I be using then? So many, look at them. Wow. Variance S estimates variance based on a sample. Well, we have a sample of scores. Variance A. So it can be very confusing, right? There's so many options for these things. Estimates variance based on a sample, including logical values and text. Why on earth would I do that? Let's just do the basic variance. See what happens. Older function, so I don't really know what it's going to do. Get a number that's a little different. Unfortunately. Why? Because it doesn't describe what it's doing. It is probably calculating a variance according to this formula 7.1, which we'll get to, which for the purposes of that discussion, dividing by 1 less than the score is correct. That's not conceptually what we're doing right now. So if you use for a function in Excel just blindly, well, I need to calculate the variance, and that says variance, so I'm just going to do that. It might not be correct, right? There are different variations of these things. Let me see what does that variance. I'm going to have to search for variance again, but I'm just curious here. Variance S. I suspect it's going to be correct, but I don't know. I haven't tested it until right now. No, it does the same thing. Okay, no. So I was hopeful because we our calculation right this stage, dividing by n, isn't something you do very often in the future. But as this is an introduction to the concept of variability and nothing else, we're not using these scores for any statistical inference and analysis and decision making, nothing like that. Here's some numbers, calculate the variance. Then it makes total sense to divide by n. Once we get a little fancier, soon enough, in the scores, we will see that we have to adjust these original formulas sometimes in the case of variance. Really, I can think of right now. So don't worry about that, but be aware that this right now we're using the spreadsheet as a calculator. And if you trust the functions too much, it doesn't know what I want to do. It doesn't know anything, right? It just does a calculation based on how it was programmed. I cannot turn off my thinking. I need to still do the calculations by hand, so to speak, just in a more convenient way. The spreadsheet allows at least have some quality of life things, but I'm not letting it do the thinking for me. Very important. All right, so hopefully this gives you an idea of how I can use a spreadsheet as a glorified calculator, which is incredibly handy for me. I use it all the time just as a calculator. You have these little quality of life things that don't make you frustrated versus the one where we had to do everything by hand, the video right before. It got a little tedious. I got a little frustrated. This is exactly the same thing, but I feel so much better about this. Just that quality of life makes a big difference. But I'm still understanding everything. I'm still doing everything by hand, essentially. All right. So next up, we will continue, but see how we can use SPSS, which is, of course, dedicated statistics software application where we can do way more, but it's done for us. So there's that trade off. Until next time.